Before we begin, thank you very much to JLogano22 for joining the Patreon campaign. Hopefully I got that right, but thank you very much for the contribution. Always appreciated. Very, very, very happy to receive the support. Every little thing that comes into the Patreon helps keep the channel going, keeps the daily content coming, and I'm trying to do a little bit more for people over on Patreon. If you are at the $5 and up tier, I just put up 3 more TJ TV episodes, so you have those to go watch right now if you are part of the Patreon. And I still have more in the archive to upload every single month until I run out, and then I have to figure out something else. But for now, let us move into the topic of the day. And this is an inevitable topic that somehow we have avoided all of this time. What you see on screen right now is a toy that we have talked about before. This is Mega Dinobot from Transformers Energon. It is a toy that was originally intended to be the very first unique molds for Universe 1.0 and to represent the original Grimlock and Swoop from G1. However, due to various things, it got shunted into the Energon toy line instead, and currently holds the distinction of being the very first Dinobot combiner, and the first one officially recognized by Hasbro as of 2009 and so forth. However, the year before brought us a very different style of Dinobot combiner, and that would be the Beast Within. One of the most infamous stories in all of Transformers, and one that is actually kind of hard to find these days. So, when Metrodome released the Transformers DVD in the UK, they wanted something as a special feature, and this is what they got. It is very hard to find scans of this comic online in order to discuss, but nevertheless, through rumor, hearsay, and wiki articles, we know the full content of the comic books. And we're going to discuss that today. Yay. So, at this point, if you haven't heard it by now, and if you've been on the channel long enough, you know my stance on the Dinobots. I think they're cooler when they don't combine. I've never been a fan of combining the Dinobots because it felt like they were so powerful they don't need to combine to go up against combiners. Their main rival in the original G1 cartoon are the Constructicons. You know, Devastator. A rivalry that continued into the animated movie. They don't need to combine to take on what was at the time the biggest weapon the Decepticons had. And that, I felt, is what made Dinobots cool in the first place. But it's always been a thing in the fandom. There's 5 of them. It's the only team of 5 in Transformers that didn't combine. So why not make them combine? You're about to see why not. So before we begin and really get into the meat of the book itself, and frankly, there's not a lot, but we will pick the bones. Let us go into a little bit of backstory. So, this starts with one Darren Jameson, who decided one day to just hit up the distributor for the Transformers DVDs in the UK, which at the time was Maverick, basically just about the distribution of the DVDs, and found out that they weren't planning any kind of special features for their releases. So Darren was brought on board to help come up with something. Now, Maverick did release the original Transformers movie to DVD in the UK. However, additional material and other DVDs did not fall under their jurisdiction. Everything else was eventually moved over to Metrodome, who we have already mentioned. And Darren came along for the ride in order to continue his role as producing extras for the DVDs. It is at that point when a fan artist by the name of Dylan Gibson, photo not available, decided to got in touch with Darren and asked, like, can you help me get a fan comic produced? And basically, we got Metrodome to pay for a fan comic, which became semi-official. Thus, we are here today. So these were distributed with Transformer DVDs in the UK, hence why they are hard to get a hold of now. And it's 2 books. It is 2 books in total. It is one book that spans 12 pages and another one that only spans 6. So they kind of wrap this up pretty quickly. But no, story begins. If you have not seen the story, because frankly the easiest way to actually read the comic book is from a YouTube video, because someone just posted a video that is basically the entire book. Let me give you like a run through of it. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but we'll take you through. So the story itself is basically the Autobots being in the middle of an ambush and getting absolutely slaughtered. And I do mean that literally. There are dead Autobots strewn about the battlefield. There's heavy damage displayed on a lot of the Transformers involved. It just seems like a completely overwhelmed situation to the point where even Optimus Prime is begging Primus for help. It's a rough time. And Grimlock is kind of debating. He is debating on whether or not to let it out, because he swore not to let it out again, to indicate that this is, yes, something that has happened before. Now, it is important to note, this is actually one of the very first pieces of Transformers media that was focused on G1 characters without trying to shunt it into G1 realm. For lack of better terminology, this was the very first what-if story the Transformers ever told, and the first side story that G1 ever produced, which is a really weird distinction given the events that are about to unfold. So, let's continue in. So, throughout all of this, we are watching the slaughter. We are watching the Autobots get absolutely demolished. And Grimlock calls for the Dinobots to combine. And it's an extremely twisted style of combination. It's not like they're transforming into the components of the combiner. It's almost as if they're being ripped apart and forced into the shape of the combiner. By their own admission, they wanted something that looked different and horrifying compared to like standard Transformer stuff. Oh, and they got it. Oh, and they got it. The Beast is one of the most infamous Transformer designs of all time. This Frankenstein machination of twisted metal and savagery. It's an ugly look. By design, it is a very ugly look. They wanted different. It's the closest Transformers got at the time to body horror. You have to wait for the DJD to turn up to get anything close. The story shifts. The Beast is a mindless brute bent only on destruction and death. It basically just starts ripping through Decepticons as fast as the Autobots had been ripped through in the previous panels, except he's doing it solo, depicted as far stronger than anyone else, taking out Predaking in a single swipe of a sword, and then doing things like this, ripping Menasor in half. So, if we kind of account for fictions where the combiner is the unified sparks of all of its components, and that is like the consciousness of the Gestalt, that means when the Gestalt dies, all the members die. So in this book, that would mean that we lost Predaking, Devastator, Bruticus, and Menasor. That is, to my count, 21 confirmed kills on top of all of the other Transformers he killed. Shrapnel and Reflector come to mind. They took really bad hits. Oh, Laserbeak was absolutely vaporized. Okay, there was that one too. This was a pretty heavy kill count. Like, a lot of characters die in this book. And I do think that's one of the major reasons why this book was so disliked when people first found out about it. And that is the story. You know, like when you get to look inside the head of this monster, It literally is just the Dinobots, again, in a lovely bit of body horror, just screaming for death. They just want to kill. It's the only thing they can think of. They need to kill something. And when the surviving Decepticons flee, the only thing left are the Autobots, who are still alive in the fight. It's at this point we're going to point out the lettering. So remember, this was all done by a fan artist who was doing the very first professional work of their career. And amongst the art, which has already drawn criticism, it's the artist's style, so I can't really fault it, just as to say I'm not a huge fan of it. The one thing that is kind of universally agreed upon is that the lettering in the speech boxes is very amateurish. Large gaps are present. It feels very stiff. It's not very well assembled. But that's in book 1. In book 2, it's going to get infinitely worse. So the plan changes from like survive the Decepticons to survive the Beast. So whatever remaining Autobots are left on the battlefield, which are not many, pile into the back of Optimus Prime and they just make a big getaway. And that's basically what your 6 issues are, or a 6-page issue is, to finish off this story. So it's not a very detailed story. As a result, it does feel very quickly thrown together to kind of wrap this story up. The surviving Autobots eventually move over to a Jetfire who just randomly showed up to join into the scene, while Optimus stays behind to handle the Beast. And to be fair, the writer does get Optimus Prime enough to try to talk the Beast down or get in touch with the Dinobots inside somehow, but there's nothing there to connect to. There is no mind left. There is just the instinct to destroy things. So there is no solution. There is none outside of just what Optimus Prime is forced to do, which is go into direct battle with the Beast, trick him into the ledge of a canyon, drop him, and just let the Dinobots get torn apart by the landing. It is weird to me that something that is as strong and powerful as the Beast could be destroyed by gravity, especially when really it wasn't that, as far as like Transformers go, it's not that far of a fall really. But you know what? Whatever wraps up the story. It is kind of implied that the Dinobots might have also died by same like combiner death circumstances that we already described. Like the kill count in this book is somewhere like 40 different bots. Like even within 6 pages and just being an escape sequence, they managed to find time to kill Skids and potentially Jazz as well. It is brutal, and I think that's just one reason why this book was so disliked by fans, not only because of how horrific the Beast looked in a way that really wasn't cool or really worth being in. It was done as a shock. Like, the design is meant purely to shock. It's not well comprised. It's not a great design. It's just meant to look scary because this was telling a horror story with G1 characters. And a lot of people did not like that. Even the backlash of, like, Dinobots shouldn't combine existed back then as well. In this case, however, I don't know. I don't know. It just feels mean-spirited to have so many bodies just strewn about just so they can be ripped apart. It doesn't matter if these were popular characters. It was literally just bodies on the battlefield to die, you know? And it just felt so, like, cruel. Like, unnecessarily cruel for such a short story. Like, there was a priority here in what amounts to 18 pages of comic book to depict as much death as possible. And that's not a story that anyone really wants to read. I don't want to read a story where half of the original G1 cast meets their end at this massive dinosaur Frankenstein. I don't know, it was just blech. it was cruel for the sake of being cruel and shocking, and it left a bad taste in people's mouths. And again, you can still tell amateurish efforts. So the boxes here for the voice for the dialogue, they're no better. And now, for whatever reason, part 2 switched to a completely different font that is awful. And I had to double check. I had to double check to make sure this wasn't some fan edit to make it look like more gritty or grimdark. No, it's literally just they switched fonts in the middle of the story for no apparent reason. God, top to bottom, for such a short book, it is such a mess. Hasbro does not officially acknowledge it. It is almost never referenced in any way, shape, or form in any other media. It is solely just a thing that exists in fans' memories as probably the worst story the Dinobots ever told. Possibly one of the worst stories that Transformers ever told. I still look to Deviations for that, and the hit piece that was What If Optimus Prime Survived the movie? But this is very close. This is also very close to being one of the worst stories Transformers ever told. Now, the idea of Dinobots combining obviously would survive. We did eventually get Volcanicus, who, weirdly enough, does actually have a very similar body shape to the Beast. But obviously not a monster and not an unintentional combiner. This one is actually making an attempt to look okay. I'm still not a fan of this aesthetic, and has nothing to do with the Beast. I just think he looks way too lanky for a Dinobot combiner. You know, like, I would think a Volcanicus made up of the Dinobots should be bulky and like built like a bruiser. And luckily we got that as a core class set. I really like this version of Volcanicus. This one works way better. I'm still not a fan of Dinobots combining, but you can make it work. Like, it's not an unattainable idea. It's not a completely doomed one, but there's certain ways you have to go about it, you know? I feel like this did a far better job of communicating what the Beast couldn't. Oh, but none of it prevents peak. Let's just be real. The Cyberverse version, peak. Absolutely peak design, peak characterization, peak set of Dinobots. I will stan Girl Swoop forever. I just will. So that's your rundown. There's a little bit of history on Dinobots combining, but mostly your origin story of one of the worst books that Transformers ever had published. The Beast is held in very low regard and very, very, very loud infamy. I'll give you one last shot of that to go home on. It ain't pretty, and it wasn't a good story. But that's your history of the book. Like I said, it's hard to find out there, but frankly, even out of curiosity, don't go read it. It's not worth your time. But that's it for the day. Just thought we'd talk about a little bit of history most like to forget about, because sometimes you gotta do that. But thank you all for watching. I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.